Hi, I'm Macy from the Charleston County Public Library, and thanks for watching this virtual program. September is Library Card Sign-Up Month, and your Charleston County Library card is the key to a wealth of information and resources for free. Of course, we have tons of books. We also have movies, telescopes, museum passes, and gaming tablets for kids. And your library card gives you access to tons of digital content, like ebooks, audiobooks, music, and magazine subscriptions, plus access to databases for professional development, learning a new language, and genealogy research. Your library card is available for free if you live in Charleston County. Just stop by your neighborhood branch with your proof of address and your ID. For more information, visit ccpl.org.
Hello there. Thanks for joining us at the main library. I'm Miss Sally.
I'm Miss Emily.
And I'm Miss Abby.
We are here to talk to you today about some of our favorite new books.
In honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, we've chosen to highlight some of our favorite titles with that theme, but there's other themes included as well.
So we've got books that you can order online and you can pick up at any location that's convenient. Just check the website for operating hours and availability. We also have great audiobooks and ebooks available on our digital platforms, including Libby and Hoopla.
So let's tell you a little bit more about those titles.
Hi friends, my name's Miss Emily and I'm one of the children's librarians at the main library, and I am super excited to introduce you to some of my favorite titles that feature Hispanic American characters. So, the first book that I have for you today is Stella, Diaz Has Something to Say. And it's the story of 9-year-old Estrella, which means star in Spanish, but she goes by Stella, and her life living in Chicago with her single mom and older brother, Nick. Stella lives in Chicago, but was born in Mexico City, meaning that she doesn't really feel comfortable speaking in either English or Spanish 100%. In her speech class at school, she says, "Sometimes I mix up the way words or letters sound, and when I do, I turn roja like a tomato." That's because the letters sound a little different in English and Spanish. Spanish is just as tricky for her, and when her family comes to visit her over Thanksgiving, she struggles to understand them and to feel like they really understand her as a person. In addition to feeling like Stella doesn't really fit in within either culture, she feels really lonely. Her best friend Jenny just got moved to another class in the 3rd grade, and she's feeling left out because Jenny's made a new friend in her class, whereas Stella, although she really is interested in the new kid Stanley, just can't quite get up the nerves to talk to him. The big moment of the book is when Stella has to give a presentation in front of her whole class, including a girl who has not been very nice to her most of the year. Stella is super nervous, but with the encouragement of her mother and her brother and some new friends that she's made along the way, she does a wonderful job. The author's note at the end of the book sums up the message of the story really nicely. Never forget that you're much stronger than you realize. You'll be surprised by what you can accomplish. So, Stella Diaz Has Something to Say is a great beginner chapter book for children who are not really ready for some of the bigger tomes, but are ready to stop reading primary or picture books. It's got big font, it's got pictures scattered throughout, so it's a great introduction to chapter books with a really likable main character. And that is Stella Diaz Has Something to Say. The next book I have for you is Each Tiny Spark by Pablo Cartaya. And I really liked this one because in addition to having a Hispanic American character, the main character has ADHD. Her name is Amelia, she's 12 years old, and she's Cuban American. She's growing up in a small but fast-changing town in Georgia, and she has to manage her ADHD on a daily basis. It really makes her struggle in school. Luckily, her mom is usually there to help her keep it in check, but her mom has to go on a business trip right around the same time her dad is coming home from the military, and he's got some emotional stuff that he's bringing with him, meaning that he can't really help her with her day-to-day needs. Stella is super worried about this, and her father is no help, acting distant and not hanging out with Amelia like he has before. Another person who lives at Amelia's house is her grandmother, who runs a auto repair shop, but's always begging Amelia to act proper, which Amelia's not interested in. The story takes place in a really interesting mix of English, Spanish, and Spanglish, and there's no translations. You're just supposed to figure out from the book the context clues. So, this story, like Stella Diaz Has Something to Say, is centered around a school project. For her school project, Amelia has to make a tourism guide for her town, and she chooses to select things that excite her. She starts with a local grocery store that sells supplies of things that she used to be able to buy back home and where other immigrants go for similar ingredients. From this starting off point, Amelia goes down a rabbit hole about immigration and issues related with it and how that occurs in her town. This also becomes entwined with a debate that's going on about schools. The school board wants to move some students from Parkview, a neighboring suburb, to Amelia's school in Maryville. But the people at Maryville think that the Parkview students don't belong, that they might cause trouble because they're not from the right side of the city. Amelia says, none of this seems fair. Who makes the rules about who gets to stay somewhere and who has to leave? Which really sums up the immigration issue quite nicely. This is a coming-of-age story of a girl who learns to find her voice, to stand up to her friends, including some who are on the side believing that the Parkview students don't belong in Maryville, her grandmother, and even her own father. You'll be cheering for Amelia as she navigates these tough challenges with great friend Gus by her side. The story includes some tough topics: PTSD, discrimination, immigration, injustice, and sometimes just plain nastiness and ignorance. But with each tiny spark, the love of family and friends is stronger. This is great for older grades who can handle some of the tougher topics and who want to have their eyes opened. The next book that I have is about another cool librarian, and her name is Pura Belpre. This story is called Planting Stories, and it tells the life of Pura Belpre. So, Pura Belpre, in 1921, left her home in Puerto Rico for a different island, the island of Manhattan. While she was working at a garment factory, when she first moved to Manhattan, she soon finds a job as a bilingual assistant for the New York Public Library. When working at the library, Pura notices that there are no Spanish books on the shelves, and so she decides to write them herself. During the library children's story hour, Pura is able to plant the seeds of her grandmother's stories and let them grow. She begins telling the stories and making puppets and getting the kids really interested in these Spanish stories that she grew up with orally. In addition to creating these wonderful story times, she also hosted events celebrating traditional Latino holidays and traditional celebrations that people weren't able to find or celebrate when they first got here. So where once Spanish-speaking immigrants may have felt unwelcome at the library, Pura helped them feel accepted and valued as patrons. This legacy of acceptance and value of Hispanic American literature lives on in the Pura Belpre Award that is given annually to books by outstanding Latinx authors and illustrators, and bears her name. Planting Seeds documents her life beautifully. The Spanish and English are integrated seamlessly with plenty of context for budding bilinguals to decipher. Short sentences are broken up into multiple lines, and large illustrations make this book a really good choice for a budding reader to read through with a grown-up. The imagery leaves plenty of room for further discussion. It tells the great story of an interesting human being, and the illustrations are just gorgeous. I highly recommend reading about this and then coming to visit the cool librarians in your town.